What a place this is. Hope I'm not too early. This place really is a jungle. Oh, they really got animals too. Like lions and snakes. There he is, I hope. Dr. Simmons, I presume?
Right.
Dr. Lee Simmons of the Henry Doorly Zoo.
Right again.
And this is the Lee Jungle.
3 times right. You must be Tom Weiss.
Right.
I'm going to take you through the jungle today.
Good. I'll tell you, this place is fascinating. It was so foggy I could hardly see my way.
Well, that's because jungles have fog, and we've got our foggers on, and we'll go turn them off here in a minute, and the fog will clear and we can see a little better.
Great.
We can go upstairs now and look at it from a different angle.
Super. This is quite a place. Yeah, I can see how this won one of the top 10 design awards from Time magazine. Amazing. Dr. Lee, how do you create a jungle in the middle of Nebraska?
Well, first you start out with about a 60-foot hole in the ground and, and a lot of money. About 11,000 cubic yards of concrete, a lot of galvanized steel so that it doesn't rust, and a lot of daydreams, I guess.
Well, what about the floor of the jungle? I mean, it looks like the floor of a jungle. How did you do that?
Because it is. Actually, there is no floor under the jungle. You know, it goes straight to China. We made our own dirt, and so we saved elephant manure for about 5 years. Mixed it with haydite and Canadian peat moss and little Nebraska topsoil, and that is the floor of the jungle.
You know, I worked up a sweat walking through the jungle this morning. How do you create the humidity?
Well, we've got foggers that you see out here to bring the humidity up, and we used deionized water. It's almost like distilled water. We run it through a big reverse osmosis system because the plants don't like you know, city water. They don't like well water. These are tropical jungle plants, and they like rainwater. And the closest we can come here with a roof on it is to use deionized water. So we produce about 6,000 gallons of deionized water per day to water plants and fog with.
Did I notice some bones on the ground down there?
No, but you notice some decaying logs and vegetation and all, because we've got the natural, you know, it's a natural environment, natural ecosystem. So we've got all of the bacteria and the fungus that operate in a normal jungle that begin to destroy a leaf almost the moment it hits the ground. So some of those big logs, for instance, they're slowly going to rot and decay down to the point that we may even have to go in and stabilize them with epoxy.
I mean, do you even have insects and like tarantulas and snakes?
Well, not tarantulas and snakes. We've got some snakes, but they're contained, and no tarantulas. But we do have a lot of insects. We've got ladybugs and lacewings and predatory wasps and predatory mites that we actually release, because unfortunately when you bring in 20 truckloads, and these are semi-truckloads of tropical trees, you also bring in some insect pests. You bring in aphids and scale and things like that. So since we're trying to have this be a natural environment, a balanced system, we're trying not to use any insecticides. So we're controlling our plant pests with insects, the ladybugs and lacewings and this type of thing. And so we release 10,000 lacewings at a time.
Amazing.
2 gallons of ladybugs.
You got the best of both worlds. You've created a jungle, and you're taking care of the ecology system.
Well, we're trying to make it as natural as possible. What this really is it's a collection of things that we have seen in different parts of the world, in different tropical rainforests over the last 15 years. And so there are a whole lot of little points and things that are places we've been, places we've seen that we kind of daydreamed about and plugged them into here and tied it all together. And when you're talking about a rainforest or a jungle, you're really talking about water. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that we've done well here is the water. A real rainforest would have maybe 300 inches of water a year or more.
Wow.
We can't do that here, but we can very tightly control our environment.
And we're going to go down and see some of those things.
We're going to see some of that, and we'll show you the mechanicals, what makes the place work.
Great.
And there's a lot more behind the scenes. We've got 2,000 species of plants. Got about 450 species, different types of orchids. About 138 species of animals right now, not counting the insects. Some of the trees that we brought in were 45, 50, and 55 feet tall when we brought them in. So
amazing.
It has really flourished. We're real pleased with the way it's flourished.
Well, not only was I impressed with it looking like a jungle, but it's really a big area. How many acres is it?
It's an acre and a half. We got 61,000 square feet of planted space. Mm-hmm. It's 80 feet tall. We didn't want it to be like an 8-story building, so we started out with a 60-foot hole in the ground. That also helps us with energy cost, because in a Nebraska winter like today with snow outside.
Yeah, I know, it's hard to believe. I'm looking at snow over my left shoulder and a jungle over my right shoulder.
And snow on the roof.
Snow on the roof.
And it's still, it's still 75 degrees in here and about 90% humid right now. Although the humidity will drop now that we've turned the foggers off, and so that within an hour or so we will be down to about 80% humidity, which is about where we like to keep it most of the day.
Mm-hmm. Those gibbon are making a lot of noise. It's great background, though. What's all the chatter about?
Well, actually, they're simply proclaiming to the world that this is their patch of jungle, that they do this every morning to tell any other gibbons that might be close that everything as far as you can hear belongs to me, and you come into my territory at your own risk.
Fantastic. That's great.
We've got a mom and a pop and the youngster there who's getting to be a real acrobat. He's really coming on fast.
I think I see some of my family tree out there. I noticed looking out also that there's different walkways and different levels. What were you trying to accomplish there?
Well, because the jungle is not all one level. Back in the 1800s and 1800s, everybody saw the jungle from the jungle floor or from a river. But actually there are layers to the jungle. Give this a couple more years and this big tree, this pongyan here, will be clear to the ceiling, and it will represent the emergent layer, those trees that stick up above the canopy. And then there's another layer that forms that kind of that green velvet, rolling velvet canopy that you see from the air if you're flying. Then under that, there's an understory of shrubs and lower trees and brushes that can handle a low light, because the emergent trees can handle extreme heat and extreme sunlight. The canopy, on the top of the canopy, it handles a lot of light and heat. The understory can't stand heat, and it tolerates low light. And then, of course, you have the jungle floor. And each type of plant is, has adapted over the millennia to be able to tolerate those conditions. So there are some of the plants in the understory that if you put them out in direct sunlight, they die.
Yeah.
And the same way with the plants that need the bright sunlight. If you put them underneath, there's not enough sun, they die. And that's what we've tried to duplicate, so that it is as real as possible, so that when you walk through it, jungles are magic. They change the way you think forever. And what we tried to do was to create a little of that magic, to bring that magic to Omaha, so that when you walked through, you experienced the closest thing to being in Costa Rica or Panama or West Africa, Southeast Asia.
Right here in Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska.
That's a good word for it, magical. Well, there are times of the year when Omaha is like a jungle, like in the summertime, but in the middle of the winter, how do you recreate the jungle?
Well, we've got a great deal of complicated mechanical equipment behind the scenes with motors and pumps and
air handling units.
Yeah, big fans. We're pumping 750,000 gallons of water per hour just to make these 8 waterfalls work and do well. In the summertime, we've got 2 of the biggest air conditioners in Omaha, so that, because one of the interesting things is that jungle plants don't like Nebraska winters. They also don't like Nebraska summers if they get too hot, some of the ones underneath. So we air condition in the summer.
This equipment's downstairs and all over the building.
Sure, why don't we go take a look?
Good.
And I'll show you what makes the place work.
Great. I've never seen so much mechanical equipment. I mean, there's pumps and there's fans and pipes.
Well, it takes a great deal of energy to operate this place. These big air handling units right here have 4 75 horsepower motors on them just to circulate the air. And you feel the air, and it's coming up out of the floor. We pump it clear to the top of the building, and we pump it from the top clear down to the building.
Lots of air. I can't believe it. That's something.
Tom, here's another unique part of our mechanical system. This is a roto strainer on our Pygmy Hippo system. And, we use city water for all of our pools and waterfalls. We warm it to 85 degrees because Pygmy hippos don't like cold water. But the problem with Pygmy hippos is you can't housebreak them. So we have to put this very elaborate filtration system on. And then when that doesn't work, as it frequently doesn't, then we've got a giant flush valve over here. What we really have with the Pygmy hippos is a 20,000-gallon giant flush toilet, and about twice a day we flush it.
Flush the toilet. What's this stop for, Doc?
This is the Malayan taper room. You know, Tom, one of the more unusual things about this facility is the amount of behind-the-scenes space that we've got. We've actually got more behind-the-scenes animal space for things like the taper here than we have on display for the public. And there's a number of very unusual aspects to it. You notice nowhere in the world do you find a 600-pound taper in a basement.
Walking up steps.
Walking up wooden steps. But if you think about it, if you're in a real jungle in Malaya, because that's where these black and white tapers come from, is from the peninsula of Malaya and Indochina. If you're down in a stream bank or on a stream, because these are aquatic animals,
yeah, then
you have to be able to climb up the bank. So walking up a set of stairs is not a terribly unusual activity for an animal like this.
Well, now, what's he doing? Is he enticing her to go up the step?
Correct.
With a banana?
And yeah, bananas are kind of her favorite food, and so you feed her everything else first, and then the bananas are kind of like the candy, except they don't rot your teeth.
Well, why did you pick the taper?
This is one of the most endangered and rarest of the species in that part of the world. And they're rapidly disappearing from peninsular Malaysia.
There she goes.
From Indochina.
Amazing! Look at her go.
Yeah, they're not only are these animals suffering from habitat destruction, but because the rainforests are being cleared, but they're actually hunted both for meat and for the folk medicine trade. So that they've really got a triple threat. Their habitat is being destroyed at a terrible rate, and they're being hunted both, as I say, for meat and some of the Asian cultures believe that there's powerful medicine in their bones and skin and
so you're really besides showing the animal, you're really doing the job by preserving
a sanctuary, coupled with a lot of other zoos in North America and Europe. This is a sanctuary for the gene pool for these animals, and many of the animals in this building are in that category. The Delacour's langurs, the Francois subspecies of the Delacour's langurs, which we're going to look at here, are nearly extinct in Vietnam, and that's the only place they're found. We think probably by the turn of the century they'll be totally extinct.
Let's go take a look at those. These are the langur you were talking about.
Now, these are Francois langurs. They're a leaf-eating monkey from Vietnam, extremely rare, endangered of becoming extinction, extremely athletic, as you can see. And what we'll do is let them out. And Jay, go ahead and open the door here. And they go up.
Look at them go.
Yeah, they go up the same set of stairs that the taper did. And then the taper occupies and owns the bottom half of that exhibit. The langurs own the top half. It works out pretty good.
They're a lot more anxious to get up too.
Oh yeah. Well, it's time to get up. They want to see what's happening. If you watch, they'll perch at the very top of the bamboo because they like to survey the whole jungle. They like to see what's going on, watch people.
Let's go up and look at them. with all of these plants and hanging vines, do you have problems containing the animals?
Well, as a matter of fact, we have had some animal escapes, and of course the Francois langurs here have been our biggest challenge because they're so incredibly athletic, and it's kind of a challenge, really. I think it's a bit of a game with them. So if you look, we've done some unusual things. There's a lot of body putty here. Notice the sprays on the wall. That's to make the wall slick and slimy and green with algae. And then the rocks on either side here, where they're not wet with waterfall, are actually coated with Vaseline.
Vaseline?
Yeah, we probably bought more Vaseline than anybody in town. And they still, once in a while, make it out. They usually perch right up here. When they see you coming, they go back in. It's kind of like harassing the keepers. You know, they don't get out because they want to go anyplace. It's just to prove that they still can.
Well, that's all they got to do all day is figure out how to get out.
Well, they eat a few plants during the day, too. Well, Tom, this is the behind the scenes of the colobus, and we're about to bring the colobus monkeys in for the night.
Well, why would they want to leave the jungle and come in here?
Well, because after the end of a hard work day, everybody comes home to eat and to sleep in their own bed. And this is both their dining room and their bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Here they come. A little apprehensive, isn't he?
Well, they're not used to strangers in here.
Here they go.
We've got both colobus monkeys and we've got talapoin monkeys in here. The little green guys are talapoins, and the big black and white guys are colobus monkeys. Here, I'll just shut this door here. There we go.
I think we may have spooked him a little.
Well, he's probably wondering what we're up to or whether we're going to come in and eat his food. We bring all of our animals into their sleeping quarters every night, so that if we need to look at them closely, if they need medical attention, or just so that we can monitor how much they eat.
And then, of course, the lights turn down and they sleep here? And
yeah, I mean, the lights are up now, and then everything's on a timer, and so, they get about 10 hours of darkness to snooze away the night.
Lee, what's this guy here? How come he's separated?
Well, this is one of a number of new females that we're going to introduce into the troop, and she's in what we kind of call a howdy cage right now. And the reason we call it a howdy cage is that every night we roll it up so that they can get very close between the mesh and kind of say howdy to each other. That's why you call it a howdy cage.
An introduction.
It's an introduction cage. As soon as we feel that they've gotten to know each other well enough and gotten used to each other, then we'll open the door and let her in with the group.
And then they mingle and get acquainted.
Yeah. And this is, we're trying to build up a larger group. One of the very important things that we concentrate on here is maintaining genetic diversity, so that there is a number of animals from widely divergent genetic or family trees, so that we don't get inbreeding.
Just like in the real jungle.
Just like in the real jungle. Well, Tom, another unique part about this facility is that not only do we have a half a mile of trail for visitors inside the jungle, but we've got a quarter of a mile of superhighway for the keepers here. We'll stop here.
This is the amphibian insects?
Yep.
Okay. Now, what are these, Doc?
Well, these are pinhead crickets, Tom, and that's what you'd expect to find in an insect and amphibian room, because that's what we use this room for, is to raise insects, both to release in the jungle for pests and for feed. And the pinhead crickets and the fruit flies here are actually feed for our tree frogs and poison arrow frogs. And of course, as we're raising them, they need smaller insects to eat. As they grow, then we feed them progressively bigger and bigger crickets until they're eating full-grown crickets.
Yeah, but what's to keep these fruit flies from flying away?
Well, because they're wingless fruit flies. They can't fly.
Okay.
They can hop, but they can't fly.
They're hoppers and not flyers. Well, do you have to maintain a certain amount of humidity here, too,
Well, and what we're doing here, if you'll notice the plastic on the top of these are poison arrow frog terrariums. We maintain the environment we want in each terrarium, so we can have some that are very, very wet, we can have some that are fairly dry, and we can have, in the case of some of our lizards and the chameleons, we can have them that are, you know, very dry.
Now, once they get on the floor of the jungle, do they kind of reproduce on their own? So you got some up there and some here?
That's the hope. That's the idea. That we get so that what I would like to do is, as part of the magic of the place, is to be able to take people in here in the evening or night and let them hear a tree frog chorus. And actually, we've already got that in a place or two.
Well, what are some of the other uses for these critters?
Well, a lot of the animals in here are for pest control, to control aphids and scale mites and things on the plants. And you know, we use ladybugs for that, and we release actually 2 different species. One species of ladybug that comes from Australia, and lacewings and little predatory wasps that are so small you can hardly see them with the naked eye. Predatory mites, and we release these at intervals so that, particularly with the ladybugs, when you when you come out in the morning with 1,000 ladybugs, why one of our problems is all of the birds think it's candy time. You get a halo of birds around you waiting for you to release the ladybugs. So we release them at night now, so that they've got a chance to disperse through the jungle before the birds come down, because it's a food chain. The ladybugs eat the aphids, but the birds eat the ladybugs.
Yeah, I think I got something eating on me now. Let's get out of here. You know, Lee, when I first came into the rainforest, I saw this display upstairs that was talking about products from the rainforest.
You know, Tom, one of the things that this display shows is that over 50% of all of the foods that we eat, nearly 50% of all of the medicines that we take, and a lot of other extremely useful things and products originally come from a tropical rainforest, a jungle somewhere. That's not even to mention the spices. Smell this.
Smells like Old Spice.
Well, it's actually allspice, but there's a Old Spice shaving lotion. But of course, this is also a cooking spice, and this is what led explorers into the first jungles and made many fortunes. Was the trade in spices, particularly out of Indonesia. And the tropical rainforests of the world are the most critically endangered habitats of all of the different ecosystems. They are probably the most endangered of becoming destroyed. So what we're hoping that this lead jungle does is to serve as a giant classroom that very gently makes everybody aware of the fact that rainforests are the liver and the lungs of the world, in that they clean our environment up and they provide oxygen. But there are many, many things in the rainforest that are yet to be discovered that will make our children's and our grandchildren's lives much, much better.
Lee, I really want to thank you for the tour this morning. It's been a great experience.
Well, if there's anything we enjoy, Tom, is letting a visitor enjoy some of the magic of the jungle.
By the way,
what?
You will show me how to get out of here.
Well, maybe. Here, this way.